Y'all, I was able to link up with an old friend a couple months back. And the question he asked me kind of shook me to my core, y'all. Y'all, he asked me, was I still beating on men? Y'all, I kind of had forgot that I used to beat on men. But let's talk about this and just the work and things. Let's talk about the details behind this, what I learned, and why this was even happening in the first place. And I know some of y'all are like, what? Beating on men? Jessica, you're so kind and classy and what? Baby, I'm a thug, baby. I don't like being disrespected. I will Spartan kick a man in his chest with no hesitation. And if he happened to be big, honey, we got a whole little artillery. We got a whole little artillery for him right here, baby. But let's get into it, because I'm delivered. I'm delivered. And I want to bring this to y'all because hopefully this is going to help deliver y'all too. And I'm going to say this. I stopped beating on men by simply not dealing with men who need to be beat on. Catch that. Not dealing with men who need to be beat on. It's really that simple. I don't know why it took me so long to get to that conclusion. But if you want to stop the video right there, I mean, that's going to be the summing up. But I'm going to go into the details because we like some details. We like some explanation. We like some self-awareness, right? So let's get into it. First of all, I come from a long line of men beaters on my mother and my father's side. My mother is literally like the family's protector, the defender of the family. I've seen her fight men and women, anybody who comes up against the family. Specifically, my great-grandma who raised her. She did not play about it. She would beat anybody down about my great-grandma. My mom was like Debo. Moms look like me, except, and she's kind of built like me too. She got more hip and more booty. But she's 5'11". I'm only 5'4". And she's a couple shades darker than me. But looks just like me, was raised in Miami, likes to fight. Also, I happen to realize my father, on my father's side, I was able to find out that my grandma was jumping on my grandfather. My father told me, he was like, he remembered being a little boy. And my grandfather went to like slap my grandmother. And she wrestled him down and basically like held him down on the couch while she was on top of him laughing in his face. And he was like, him and his brother, they were like toddlers at the time. And they were basically trying to get her off of him and was like, get off my daddy, get off my daddy. And she basically just like held him down until she wanted to let him up. And they was like, oh, well, he got up, grabbed some of his clothes and left and then come back for a couple weeks. So this goes deep. This is ancestral. This is also my great grandma. She literally has a mugshot in her 80s from shooting a man. Yeah, she shot him. He was talking stuff in her house and she shot him. So, and it was one of her son-in-laws. So this goes deep. This is ancestral. This is in the bloodline. This is the women and the men. They didn't play. The women didn't play. I don't remember seeing too many things of women in my family being beat up on like that. Not really. And if somebody was, the family coming to stump you out. So it's in the bloodline. And I'm going to tell y'all, me, I never wanted to carry this stuff over. Me, I wanted to be peaceful. I wanted to be kind. I wanted to be just, let's be in harmony, in flow. However, how some of these men move out here, honey, they will bring another side out of you. However, I had to go through this and deal with this Because on one hand, I was very resistant because I seen a lot of this violence and these things going on as a child. I attempted to resist it and repel it, and I was kind of moving in judgment of it, like, that was just so terrible, it was so whenever you're suppressing and resisting and you're holding negative judgment towards certain actions and things like that, a lot of times what you're running from and what you're attempting to suppress, you end up running into, you end up manifesting it in your reality because you have so much emotionally charged energy towards it, even if it's something that you hate. So, as well, we talked about how this is in the DNA. There are certain things that carry over. So, it's considered part of like the epigenetics. And just in the behavior psychology, whatever you're infused in as a child, you tend to carry over and you tend to act on a subconscious level. And a lot of it will happen when you're not fully thinking, when you're not fully rational, when anger or things hit, right? Furthermore, I grew up as a tomboy girly girl. I was a hybrid. I love makeup and Barbies, but I also love wrestling and being outside and climbing trees and getting dirty. I grew up, wrestling boys and all of that. So, I've always kind of been into, sports and things like that. So, being, rough and tough, to me, it's kind of very much who I am, even in this current day. So, I first noticed this with, particularly my marriage. I had a little incident where somebody got outside of themselves and slapped me. Yes, slapped me. And I had to beat this man like a gorilla. I was about to expedite his reincarnation. I'm going to say that. I can't say other words. I was about to expedite his reincarnation. And I literally had to stop myself. Because I'm the type of person, when I get going, I get into like a blackout rage. And I'm not going to stop until your body is no longer moving. So that was one incident that never happened again after I got him together. And then I noticed like certain relationships that I would be in, when there was disrespect being served, or I was feeling like people wasn't taking my boundaries serious or taking me serious, I would kind of lash out. And I was doing it in a passive aggressive way because I didn't want to come off as though I'm angry and things like that. I would do it in a passive aggressive way. So I would do it like, oh, we're playing, we're just playing wrestling. And as we're playing, honey, I'm turning a man every which way but loose. Y'all, one time, actually the person who asked me, was I still beating on men? Y'all, this man forgot my birthday. And so when I asked him about it, he was just nonchalant about it. Y'all, the next time I seen him, which was like a few weeks later, I was like, hey, what's up? Hey. And we just casually chilling. Child, I end up like, playing wrestling with him. Y'all, I told this man house up. Y'all, that man touched every wall in that house. Honey, I turned that man every which way but loose. And though I was under the guise of we're just playing, I was mad. I was mad that he had forgot my birthday. Like, how dare you disrespect me? How dare you? And then on top of that, when I bring it up to you, you act like it ain't no big deal. Okie dokie. Let's see if it's not a big deal you touching every wall of this house. Y'all, I had ripped down the curtain. I ripped down a couple curtains. I left a couple holes in the wall. It is what it is. The funny thing with this is anybody that I've had to get physical with like that, till this day, they're not mad at me. If anything, they're like, I was an asshole. You had a right to do what you did. It was past due. You was way too nice and way too patient, way too kind. It was at the point where you needed to choke me out like you did. So, and even with my little twin flame, honey, I used to be beating the brakes off of that Negro. So, I'm going to say this. One thing I learned about myself with all of this is I had issues expressing myself, expressing my needs, expressing my emotions and how I was feeling hurt. I seen those things as like vulnerable and weak. And it could be from the fact that, I was probably closer to my father's growing up. And, men don't really talk about their feelings. They handle things by shutting down or getting physical. So I was very much in this male-like energy. And I didn't feel safe sharing my feelings. And, growing up in a Black household, you don't get to share your feelings of how you feel about things and stuff. They tell you to shut your ass up and go do whatever they said you to do. So it's like I lived a life of constantly suppressing myself and not speaking my truth until it would get so much pressure would build, I would kind of like explode. And I was very controlled. So therefore I would do it in a passive aggressive way of, hey, we're just playing, ha 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 ha, and then I'm tearing your ass up. It was a lot. I was going through a lot, honey. So eventually I came to a point in maybe about 2022, 2023, where I started realizing the need for me to actually feel safe within connections, not just simply with men, but with people. And with that shift, because it was a deeper level of self-love and advocating for myself and seeing that I deserve more, and that if I was going to get more, I had to start with myself by giving myself more. Because I had to ask myself, like, why would I even stay in connections where I feel like I have to fight? I feel unsafe. I feel like this is what it has to be. And even if I'm not physically fighting, I'm mentally and emotionally at unrest and feeling unsafe in this relationship. And eventually the physical fighting is a manifestation of how much I've been holding in because I felt unsafe and unheard for so long. I had to realize, like, what is it within me that is settling for this, that is choosing this experience over and over? And I had to connect it back to how I grew up. So much of what we do in our adulthood relationships with friends and romantic partners is very much how we grew up in our childhood household. There we go. But because I grew up not being able to speak my mind and keeping quiet to keep the peace and walking on eggshells, and even in my own childhood having to eventually use physical force to protect myself against abuse, that's how I kind of repeated the same pattern in my relationships with men. So I would just literally take whatever they were dishing out, wouldn't speak up for myself, and if I did speak up for myself, wouldn't really hold my boundary and wouldn't leave, would continue to be there even though I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. And then eventually I would explode and it would break out into some physical type of violence, right? Or passive aggressive, physical, whatever. And I had to realize, this is not what I want. I have to choose something different. I want to be able to be in connections where I feel safe, where I'm not in this energy of, because I didn't even realize that it was defensive energy. I didn't. Like, I wasn't fully conscious of where it was coming from. I just know when I had enough, I was ready to get physical. And I didn't realize that, Jessica, you don't have to deal with that. You get to choose who you're going to be around, and you get to choose on who's bringing out what. And if you don't like what they're bringing out of you, then maybe this is not the people or place for you. If people are bringing out, defensive energy, feeling like you have to protect yourself, because that's what it was. Feeling like you have to protect yourself, this is not a good environment for you. This is reminding you of your childhood all over again. So I make the decision of I'm only entertaining places where it's safe, where I can be soft, where I can rest, where I can be at peace. Because I had started cultivating that stuff for myself on the inside. I was giving myself peace and rest. And I wasn't playing these stories of how people are against me and how the world is tough and how I have to fight for everything. I was really in a state with every area of my life, even my business, of Jessica, you can rest, you can be soft, you can be at peace, you can be more in your feminine energy, right? And therefore, I was no longer willing to entertain men who I had to show that type of energy towards to be in a relationship with them. And I'm telling y'all, it is the best thing ever. And I haven't only done it for men, I've done it for friends and family members. If you're the type of person where I feel like I have to be on the defense and I have to protect myself from you, you will have no access to me. Because that is truthfully not the energy I want to be in at all. I want to be at rest. I want to be within joy, within peace, and within goodness. And I want to be around people who love those same type of things. People who are carrying all type of dysfunction and all type of bitterness and stuff that they got going on and wanting to project it on other people. I'm no longer available to interact with those type of circumstances and things. I don't have to. So therefore, I chose a different experience for myself. And because I've chosen a different experience, like I said, I don't beat on men anymore. Because I don't date men that I have to beat on. I date men that know how to act, know how to communicate, are emotionally intelligent, are not trying to compete with me, are not trying to belittle me, are not trying to dominate me. And therefore, since I've made a different choice for myself on the type of men, people, friends, family members that I entertain, I don't find myself in contentious, dysfunctional crap anymore. Therefore, I'm much more peaceful, calm, I'm good. And when I do see that type of energy, because I know I'm a warrior at heart, I'm going to disengage. And that will be the last that you see of me. If I can't be at rest and at peace with you, baby, access revoked. So in conclusion, for all my people out there that feel like they're in situations where they're constantly having to protect themselves or defend themselves from people that they're supposed to be, loving and supposed to be loving them, they're supposed to be safe with. And even if you don't do it on a physical level, because I know most people, most women don't do it on a physical level. Most men don't do it on a physical level. Sometimes you have to do it with your words or with your actions. But if you find yourself having to protect and defend yourself, or even stand up for yourself with those that you are in relationship with, it's time to really ask yourself, are these your people? And why am I settling for this? Why am I settling for unsafe situations? Why am I settling for places where I feel like I have to protect myself? People, I have to protect myself. Why am I settling for this? And how is this reflective of my self-love, my beliefs about myself, what I think is the norm, what I've seen growing up, what I want for myself? Is this what I want for myself, or do I want something more? Do I want something that is peaceful and restful? I would say, truly, go in deep and ask yourself that, because you're always open to experiencing something different. As long as you're willing to let go of the old beliefs, the old versions of you, you're welcome into a new experience at any time. But the self-awareness, the self-reflection is going to take that. It's going to take all of that to get you into this new experience. I know so many people that spend years going back and forth, arguing, fighting, doing weird stuff to other people, and whether they're friends or whether they're in a marriage or a connection. Why? When you can simply let these people go and move on to something more peaceful. We got to realize when we are okay in dysfunction and chaos, it's because something internally within us is chaotic and dysfunctional. And that's what we need to clear up. Therefore, we're no longer in resonance with chaos and dysfunction.